Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Public sector workers restive over slow pace of new compensation system. Nurse practitioners one step closer to writing prescriptions. And later in sports, reggae girls coaching staff not perturbed by Bunny Shaw missing Australia tour. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. Concerns this afternoon about some public sector workers who are becoming restive over the slow pace of implementation of the government's new compensation system. That's according to President of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, O'Neill Grant. Kimon Witter reports.
President of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, O'Neill Grant, says the workers have been waiting since December to receive their retroactive salaries and promised benefits. He says they have been patient about the delay, but their patience is running out.
The slowness of the pace of getting the alignment into the executive agencies and other statutory bodies is now wearing on the workers. They would have seen their colleagues getting their retroactive salaries in December. They were promised that by January we would have been well on the way to dealing with their alignment so that by at least latest February they would have been getting their salaries, and now we are in February. And we don't seem to be close to settling those alignment issues and to allow the workers to get their new compensation, and it's causing anxiety. And it is now manifesting itself in restiveness.
Mr. Grant adds that there has been increased lobbying by the workers for their matters to be brought to the finance minister by way of their respective employers, but argues that this has also been slow. He says the workers are calling for their unions to return to the negotiations with the finance minister to quickly resolve outstanding issues.
We are hoping that given what is happening now and the risk of contagion that we may have if we continue along this path, that the Ministry of Finance, the TIU and the heads of entities will quickly do what is necessary to bring us to a point that we can now say, all right, notwithstanding the main anomalies and difficulties, we still want to press ahead with the alignment and work those things through, but we are not at that point. And I suspect if we take too long to get there, we will continue to see contagion as we have seen now. TAJ, no JIS, we are hoping that it doesn't go beyond that.
Kimon Witter reporting for TVJ News.
3 days after the implementation of the new Road Traffic Act, and the public transportation sector is already reeling from the implications. It relates to the requirement for public passenger vehicles, PPVs, to have car seats for young children. The drivers want the government to review that section of the act immediately. Prince Moore reports.
Parents are this afternoon fuming as taxi operators island-wide are now refusing to carry students. It follows the implementation of the new Road Traffic Act, which took effect on February 1. According to the new Road Traffic Act, public transport operators must have car seats or booster seats for children under the age of 12 years. But that's not going down well with taxi operators.
It is very much ridiculous of the government wanting public passenger vehicle to have child seat. I don't see where in the world public passenger vehicle are required to have child seat. That is for a private vehicle.
Where in a chichi bus or a IS bus can child seat fit? That's what I'm asking. Question closed.
And already, parents are feeling the brunt of that decision.
Yesterday, I was on my way home with him, and it was even hard for me to get vehicle to go home because the vehicles didn't want to take him with me home, and I'm here even though after 8 cannot get a drive. It don't stand up. Cannot get a drive for him to go to school, so it's really affecting us.
President of the St. James Taxi Association, Dion Chance, says this rule under the Act is unfair for taxi operators. He explained.
We are subsidizing the fare of these school children because currently we collect only $50 on most routes for the children. Now do the math, $50 versus a ticket for $5,000, it's not worth it, right? And the fact that the authorities is saying that the driver must go out and purchase a car seat, that is a no-no.
He says in other jurisdictions, it's not required for public passenger vehicles. So why is it being instituted here? In the meantime,
why is the JUTC exempt? Aren't they public passenger vehicles as well? If there's an accident and the bus rolls, won't you have the same devastating effect? You know, all I can say is that in Jamaica land we must be practical in the things that we put out there.
In a series of tweets on Thursday, Information Minister Robert Morgan said the National Road Safety Council has been tasked with the responsibility to review the implementation of the Act. However, it's left to see if that section of the Act will remain or be repealed following the committee's meeting next Thursday. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says before year end, some nurse practitioners should be given the right to write prescriptions. Dr. Tufton says he now has a report that he will take to Cabinet for a decision to be made. The details in this report. It's been years since advanced nurse practitioners have been lobbying to get the right to write certain prescriptions. Well, that may soon be a reality. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says he had appointed a committee headed by Professor Eldemaya Shearer, which also included the Medical Council, to carry out an assessment. He says he's encouraged as that assessment was completed and he now has a report on his desk.
The report basically looks at a number of issues. The report is both secondary data and primary data. Primary data meaning they went out in the field and interviewed, did focus groups with doctors and nurses to get feedback. And what I'll say, because I'm now preparing a document for Cabinet, is that generally speaking, there is an acceptance, certainly by those who participated in that process, both at the committee level but also at the regional level.
It's understood that some medical doctors are against this idea. However, the health minister notes that the practice is common in other jurisdictions and has been working quite well for those sectors.
It happens in other jurisdictions. It is happening informally in some instances now, where the advanced nursing practitioner is the only person in some of these rural spaces, where because through a phone call they end up prescribing or advancing an approach to solving people's medical problems. And what we need to do is to formalize it. The key is to ensure that the training matches the standards around the limitations of prescriptive rights, and they will become a complement, not a replacement, but a complement to doctors.
Dr. Tufton says he also asked the committee to continue a while longer. He says he wants them to help coordinate the next stages, including legislative amendments.
I am hoping that this year, this calendar year, 2023, we will go a far way in making it a reality, in that the next steps would be for Cabinet to consider and give its approval or nod for the next stages, that it will mean what amendments in legislation needs to happen and trigger those amendments. And once those are in effect and those current advanced nursing practitioners meet the requirements that may be stipulated in the amendments, then we should go.
The National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, says it has not shelved plans to have a garbage transfer station in the parish of Trelawney. However, the authority's executive director sought to explain the delays with the plan during an interview with journalists on Thursday.
Garbage collection over the years has been a major problem, especially for those along the northern to western belt of the island. There have been numerous complaints, too, of the time it takes for garbage trucks to leave the parish of Trelawney to dump garbage at the retirement dump in St. James. It's why in 2018, the government had announced plans for a transfer station in Trelawney, which was expected to facilitate better management of the garbage collection process. However, almost 6 years later, those plans are yet to come to fruition. But why is that?
The size plan that is being envisaged for Trelawney, it is
not something that happens overnight. A lot of engineering work, a lot of mapping, site mapping, a lot of technical things. So work is going on. The consultants are still working. Plus you have the government, PIMSEC, which has to weigh in on this to approve everything. So yes, it might be a slow process, but it's one that we are bound by. But it's not something that's abundant at all.
At the outset, some $90 million was announced to have the facility built. But Mr. Gordon pointed out that that was not the final figure. He says it was mere anecdotal.
At the time, none of the detailed work was done. Now, if you're building a house, you could very well have, for example, 10 million and you say you want to build a house. By the time you get to talk to your architect and your engineer and they begin to do the design and so forth, you realize that the 10 million could be used up in the design phase. So it is just one of those realities. So of course, naturally, the figure would move.
In the meantime, the NSWMA executive director says a final cost as to the fires at the retirement dump is yet to be done.
So we're still working out the cost. We haven't paid out any bills yet. We're keeping the cost at a very minimum level. And that's another plus. Because we actually do stockpile materials, we do have to get additional material when the fire comes in, but we are able to respond quicker. So the fires don't get out of control and cost the kind of millions that it used to cost at another time. Now, we are spending far less on fires. And as soon as we put those figures together, we can discuss that.
As for garbage pickers who look for valuables in the various dump sites across the island, Mr. Gordon says they remain a matter of concern. He says the matter was raised with the local government minister, who at the time ordered the Social Development Commission, SDC, to conduct an assessment.
Truth be told, it is not going at the pace that I would like, but it is not dead. The lands are still available from HHA and the discussions are still ongoing. But it is a concern, and I would not be going around the bush to say it is a concern. The ideal way, the best practice across the world is not to have your landfill compromised by people that are not directly under your control or employ.
Codian Barrett, TVJ News.
And as we continue looking at money management, we're learning how to balance love and money. Codian Barrett joins me in studio with a new topic for the month. Codian.
Thanks, Shamila. February is the month of love, and this month we're talking about marital finance. Marriage might seem to be all about love and companionship, but on a deeper level, it's much more than an emotional commitment. It's also a financial and legal one. So I sat down with two couples financial coaches who revealed how you should get financially prepared on the road to marriage.
Tying the knot can have significant consequences for your money. It's important to make sure you and your partner are on the same page about the assets and liabilities that you are bringing into the marriage and about how you will handle money as a couple. According to couples financial coaches Jermaine and Renee McDonald, who are a married couple themselves, these discussions are crucial before marriage.
If you've either recently been engaged or you're talking about marriage, then you want to know that person's status. Do they have debt? Are they struggling financially? What are their views on money?
What are their habits, their spending habits? How do they treat money? How do they earn money?
Yeah. What is their lifestyle? Because you may have different lifestyle in terms of how you spend money, and then when you come together in a marriage, have to essentially make enough to fund both lifestyles.
Here are 6 financial conversations to have before getting married. Discuss childhood influences. One might be a spender or a live-in-the-moment person, while the other could be a saver and long-term planner. Openly discuss financial history. Learn your partner's financial past and present. To join or not to join bank accounts. Decide on a prenup. Outline who will handle the finances. Be clear about family and career plans.
And once you've had those discussions and decided to move on to planning one of the most expensive part of your journey, it's important that you save for the wedding and beyond. This will help prevent or soften financial blows in the marriage. But if you're already married and you and your spouse are having financial challenges, then stick around because next week we'll be giving you tips on how to overcome them. Shamela?
Thank you, Kodian. It's now time for the Business Minute.
The government is looking to divest its stake in National Rums of Jamaica Limited, NRJ, via the stock market, but wants a fresh valuation done on its investment before moving ahead. The investment is being handled by divestment agent Development Bank of Jamaica, DBJ, that sought a valuator in a January 30 filing. Based on the NRJ's Articles of Association, it said the other existing shareholders have a preemptive right to acquire the shares. If the remaining shareholders fail to purchase the shares, the government may proceed to divest the offered shares or any part of the offered shares not purchased by the remaining shareholders to a third party by way of public offering. In business overseas, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported the U.S. economy added a staggering 517,000 jobs in January. The surge is a big surprise. Economists were only expecting about 185,000 additional jobs. The government also said the unemployment rate fell from 3.5% to 3.4%. That is a level the U.S. hasn't seen since 1969. And this Sunday, we hear how one woman is creating a journey of self-love through her natural hair care business. That's the Business Review in Primetime News on Sunday. That's it for the Business Minute. I'm Kodian Barrett.
And now the top regional and international stories. Here's Raquel Porter.
In the region, the Guyana Revenue Authority says there has been an alarming increase in personal delivery of refined narcotics, drugs, and other illicit items at all of the country's ports of entry. Officials say seized quantities of these illegal items have since led to several persons being arrested and brought before the courts. The Guyana Revenue Authority says it will continue to work with the population to ensure there's compliance with the tax, trade, and border laws in the country. The authorities are also encouraging persons to report any illicit and smuggling activities. On the international scene, China will fully reopen its borders with Hong Kong and Macau next week, Monday. This means travelers entering mainland China from Hong Kong or Macau will no longer need to provide proof of negative COVID tests as long as they have not traveled abroad in the previous weeks. This resumption of normal travel is expected to provide support to the battered economies of the two cities. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Raquel Porter for TVJ News.
Thank you, Raquel. We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your Midday Sports Report with Jordan Fort.